I'm Dille.
And I'm Jonny Sundt here at FloBikes, and we're going to be wrapping up and recapping what happened at the Tabor round of the World Cup in Czech Republic and also the Flandriencross in Hamme, Belgium last weekend, and then looking ahead to what's going to happen next weekend at the Koksijde round of the World Cup in Belgium.
I want to start with the elite women. Annemarie Worst really took control this weekend, and it seems like there's a new rider taking control every weekend. Just last weekend it was her teammate Jara Kastelein winning the European Championships, but Worst is really showing the form that we saw last year when she became one of the most dominant riders in the world, the European champion. She really took these races by the horns. Absolutely.
She really is delineating herself as the rider. It's so, like you said, it's so close. It's the margin between these riders is tiny. Everyone's getting their, Alvarado's getting her share of victories. Kastelein, big victory at the European Championship, but Worst, I mean, especially on day two in Hamme, she recovered better. She was dominant again. By no means is this the decider for the season, but right now I would say she is the class rider.
And let's break down this battle between her and Alvarado at Tabor, because I feel like this is one of the key moments. Two of the young stars in the sport. Alvarado took the early lead in this race, was way out front. Worst tracked her down, and it was really a bobble on the last lap coming off of the barriers where Alvarado failed to get into her pedal. Worst ended up taking control and really laid on the pressure.
Yeah, so she made the bobble, missing her pedal, and then if you look closely at that last lap, she dabs in 2 or 3 corners after that, and one, and then the gap opened, and then there was a final dab that was, she was actually making a run back at Worst in a technical section where she's a very good technical rider, and she got cross-rutted, she had to put her foot down, and that was it, but they were so closely matched, there was just no room for even the smallest of errors on that last lap.
Yeah, and what impressed me in addition was Flandriencross, where we had 4 incredible riders up front, Annemarie Worst, Alvarado, and they were joined by world champion Senekant, who is on the comeback. By the way, watch out elite women's field, and then Worst teammate Jara Kastelein, who joined the group late in the race. Worst rode a really tactically astute race here, and I think that's what impressed me most about this weekend. Like you said, the margin for error is so thin. Everybody's fit. Everybody can drive their bike really well. But Worst was cool, calm, composed. She rode the front when she needed to. She let other riders take the front when she didn't want to be up there. And she had that searing last lap acceleration, like we've seen from Senekant, to be completely honest, and that was the difference. She was riding within herself until she needed to really kind of put the dagger in.
Yeah, she clearly was the most recovered of all those riders that did the World Cup the day before, and with the travel, Czech is pretty far for what they're used to. But she rode from the front. She knew she needed to be on the front of the last lap. What actually really impressed me was Senekant riding a very tactically adept race, making sure she owned second wheel, and it paid off because there was a small mistake from Kastelein on the last lap that gapped off Alvarado. That was it. And Senekant is wearing the stripes for a reason, and it's really cool to see her. There was a lot of doubts. We cast a lot of doubts over what was going on with Senekant at the earliest part of the season. She's creeping her way back up there, and she is showing that she's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, and also, Worst coming back to form. I mean, you might say Worst was best.
Yeah, you have to say that.
I mean, and I'm excited about Cant coming back. Can't stop Cant. I mean, the pun opportunities are just going to get better and better as the season continues. And I think also you brought up a good point earlier, Jonny, in the terms of the World Cup overall standings. There is only one rider currently in the top 10 from Belgium, and it's not Senekant. It's Ellen van Looy is currently sitting in 9th overall. We have 3 North Americans in the top 10 of the World Cup, Magali Rochette, Katie Keogh, and Katie Compton. This really speaks to the internationalization of the discipline that we see in the elite women's field. We're also seeing it in the men's under 23 and the men's junior fields. We're not yet seeing it in the elite men's field, but the UCI bringing the World Cup to the U.S., the internationalization. Help me out here.
Internationalization?
Yes. Of the sport, it's working. I mean, the elite women's field is a truly international field.
Yeah, and I mean, grain of salt, the first 2 rounds were in the U.S. A lot of riders missed those races purposefully or from travel budget perspectives. But we're 4 rounds in to the World Cup, and like you said, there's only one Belgian rider in the top 10 for the overall. Certainly will change as the year goes on, but we're seeing this great host of riders from nations that are developing cyclocross talent right now.
Yeah, I mean, especially the Netherlands, and which sort of brings me back around to Team 777, star riders Annemarie Worst and Jara Kastelein, both from the Netherlands. I hope that they do not win or even place in the top 3 in the Cyclocross World Cup, because you should have to go race your bikes in the U.S. This is the top elite women's team in the world. This is a powerhouse team, and they should be racing in the U.S. You got to make the trip over, and yeah, I hope that comes to bite them at the end of the season. I think it would be a tragedy if Worst or Kastelein comes back and wins the World Cup overall without having gone to do Iowa City and Waterloo.
And it'll be interesting to see how that works out with them trying to expand the World Cup to almost 16 or more rounds next year, and what that does for that mindset. Now, I did talk to a few of the riders who were in Waterloo at the World Cup, and a lot of them were talking that their teams just didn't have the money or the resources to send them there. So a lot of the decisions to skip the early rounds wasn't because riders didn't want to go to the U.S. It was a budgetary concern for a lot of them.
I totally agree, and I think that is a fair point. I mean, we look at a team like the Telenet Belois Lions. We think of them as this big powerhouse team, super well funded, a lot of the best riders in the world, best equipment, but they do have relatively tight budgets. This is only a Division III, a continental team on the road, and yeah, they are making the most of what they can do. It's not like they can just jet around the world, race wherever they need to be like a World Tour team can. So I am sympathetic from that standpoint, but at the same time, it's not cheap for Katarina Nash, who lives in California, to go race in the Czech Republic. It's not cheap for Magali Rochette from Canada to go race in Europe. So yeah, you know, they do need to make the trip. At the end of the day, and I stick to my guns in that I don't want them to win the World Cup overall. I'm actively rooting against them.
At least, at the very minimum, it probably shows some of the Europeans what the American riders and the North American riders have had to go through for all these years when we complain about the travel and the time difference and the sheer logistics and dollars that go into it, and they're like, they're just not as good.
Yeah. Let's get into the elite men. Mathieu van der Poel absolutely showed his class at Tabor.
I don't have enough words. If you look at it just from the surface, it just looks like he just sort of rode his way through the field and got there and then figured out how to win. But a huge emotional week for his family. His grandfather, Raymond Polidor, passed away. On top of that, he started in the 3rd row having no World Cup points, and just showing the class of rider he is, calmly working his way through the field, using actually a lot of running. He was very strategic. When the traffic was there, he would jump off his bike early and just shoulder up while riders were running into each other. Just very calm. But then he gets to the front group, and then he gets gapped again. And that's if you watch a lot of cyclocross, that's when you're like, oh, that's a top rider that made that big effort to get there, and then they come off, and he was almost 15, 17 seconds adrift. You're like, it's not his day-to-day. I'm thinking, the race is coming out.
Van der Beert is going away.
He calmly, he doesn't stop. He just calmly, keeps the pressure on, rides his way back up the leaders. And then you have Michael Van Tornout, who's playing absolute superstar teammate for Ellie Iserbyt this year. And they started to mess with him like they did at European Championships. Little gaps in the corners, just messing with him for the wheel. And Van der Poel had to physically move riders off the second wheel that he wanted to be on second wheel behind Iserbyt at times. Throw into the mix that you have Lars van der Haar having a great ride, and he's going for it. He's attacking. He's not jumping the barriers just to get ahead. He's riding his race. He's won on that course before. And so, and Van der Poel clearly under pressure physically in a tough week. And he figures out the one spot on the course that he's going faster than Eli Iserbyt on the last lap. He moves to the front and he attacks up that and he wins. He doesn't even put his hands up across the line, just drained emotionally at the line.
Yeah, you can only imagine what he was going through this week. Very close with his grandfather, Raymond Poulidor, a big fan of both him and his brother, always there alongside the course. I mean, Poulidor retired decades ago, but still at all the events. You know, it was actually, his wife said, a bit of the fatigue from attending the Tour de France this past year, where kind of his downhill slide started and sadly ended up passing away last week. So yeah, Van der Poel, to have that ride on a week like that was really special. He had just a beautiful quote where, he was bunny hopping the barriers, and every time he went over the barriers, he was thinking that he was, getting a little bit closer to heaven, a little bit closer to his grandfather who had just passed away. Yeah, kind of gives me chills to think about. And then the next day, Flandriencross, we saw just a classically dominant Van der Poel victory.
Yeah, it's a race he's won. He's had battles. He had a great battle there with Wout van Aert a few years ago. He won last year famously. It was a race where his teammate Tom Mewsen got away with him. There was a little mishap, I believe, on the first or second lap, and they got away. They got clear. They got a gap, and Tom Mewsen had to suffer through 40 minutes of the most excruciating Van der Poel pacing behind his teammate, and finally Van der Poel distanced him and won. It's a technical course. It's twisty. It's fast. It suits a good bike handler. But Mathieu on Sunday was surgical. He was perfect. I think I saw him dab once where his wheels slid. Didn't slow him down. He just went to work, and he didn't have a big gap until at 2 laps to go. Laurens Sweeck was only 4 seconds behind him. He did what he had to do, but he just kept the pressure on like he does. He doesn't make mistakes, and he grew that gap. Just another perfect ride from the world champion.
Yeah, the Van der Poel, the Van der Beard Challenge hashtag is live, and well, again, we will not be shaving our faces until Mathieu van der Poel loses a bike race or the UCI Cyclocross World Championships. Again, you can watch all of the UCI World Cups and the UCI Cyclocross World Championship in Canada on the FloBikes platform, and of course the entire DBV series is available in the US and Canada. The next round is November 30th in Kortrijk. It is the Urban Cross.
Yes.
So look forward to that one, but let's get into what we have coming up this weekend, the UCI World Cup in Koksijde, the sand dunes of Belgium. This is an iconic race, an iconic course, and really the first, I believe, truly heavy course we're going to have this year.
It's the big one. Having raced on this course before, the television does not do it justice for just how hard it is. The sand is so deep. There's so much running. It is a big deal race, big crowds. And they made a few small changes to the course this year, bring it back more to the old. They added a couple turns, but you're going to have a lot of running. You're going to have deep sand ruts, just a heavy course. Like you said, there'll be a lot of running, and who's the rider who can handle those? Like, obviously Mathieu van der Poel has been dominant. He can run fast. He's just good at everything. He used a lot of his running in Tabor to his advantage. He was dismounting early before the stair section. But how is Eli Iserbyt? Eli Iserbyt's legs are a good 12 inches shorter than Mathieu van der Poel's.
You're saying because Eli Iserbyt has short legs, he's at a disadvantage.
It's science.
So let me tell you, Johnny, as somebody who rides a 52 centimeter frame myself, there is no better way to motivate somebody who like Eli Iserbyt, who may be vertically challenged, than to discount his ability to run as fast through the sand as Mathieu van der Poel. I will say, Elizabeth did not have a great race in Koksijde last year. He was 8th in the under-23 field. Mathieu van der Poel, of course, won the elite men's race last year, but it's going to be a battle. You know, Mathieu van der Poel has been dominant, but not unbeatable so far this season. On the women's side, last year we saw a rider who shall not be named win the elite women's race. Nikki Brandmeier was the ostensible winner of that race. She has since retired. Annemarie Worst was 3rd. Celine Del Carmen Alvarado up in the mix. And, you know, I think we're going to see riders like Sanne Cant, like Lucinda Brand, like Katie Compton, who has had really good form this year, coming out. This is going to be a race that's more about technique, about brute strength than actual speed. 100%.
Experienced riders do very well at Koksijde because it is very tricky. It's power management. It's not just that it's super heavy running. It's not just that it's big, deep sand ruts. The experience of having raced that race multiple times, these riders know where they can efficiently use their energy, and the more times you race that race, the better you get at it. Katie Compton had breathing issues there last year. I don't think her result indicated how good she is on that course. I fully expect Katie Compton and Sanne Cant to be absolutely in the mix because of how well they ride this course. But there is the youth movement. There's so many fast riders that we were just talking about. There's so many fast riders right now. There's so many on-form riders right now that are separated by next to nothing. So the sand will expose a bad day very quickly.
It's going to be an exciting race. Of course, again, the Koksijde World Cup will be on FloBikes for viewers in Canada. Please tune in, and we will see you next week for a recap of the Koksijde World Cup and a look ahead to what's coming up. We'll see you then. So last Monday, you guys were filming the show. I took my kids on an adventure down to Secret Beach. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this in Roy Guerrero Park, right on the banks of the Colorado River. We were just gonna hang out.
Isn't that where all the naked people hang out?
They're not. No. That scene has kind of moved on. It's been shut down. Very family friendly these days.
Okay.
So. I packed up like extra clothes, water bottles, snacks. My son packed a bucket with all of his digging supplies, his shovels and whatnot. We're just gonna go down there and hang out and look for rocks and fossils. So we get down there, we throw our stuff on the beach next to the river. We go on like a little walk, a little hike, do some exploring. Come back and the water. There's no more beach. The water is all the way over. The river has quadrupled in size. None of our stuff is there.
So they opened the...
The floodgates had opened on the Pleasant Valley Dam. Yeah. My kids were so confused because they don't know how dams work or anything, right? My son is 6. Yeah. My daughter's almost 3. I should be able to say that more quickly. So anyways, I'm like, it's like my nice bag. There's children's water bottles in there, they're little Camelback water bottles. Those things are $17 a pop. Yeah. My hoodie, lots of stuff. And so I'm like, we're gonna go see if we can find this. So we start, and you can't walk along the shore because the water's so high. So we start bushwhacking, kind of through the jungle, along the banks, little deer trails and whatnot. And my kids they're actually pretty into it. My daughter more so than my son. And then we're bushwhacking. I'm we're never gonna find this. And then I look down on the banks. There's this little eddy, and my bag is just swirling around.
How deep was it?
It was really deep.
So you got
there
wet.
was no going in there. So my initial thought was well, I'm just gonna have to go swimming after this bag. But there's from that dam, the river just flows 200 miles down to the Gulf of Mexico.
You're in the Gulf.
Yeah.
You can wave as you go through Bastrop. That's what it is.
Yeah. So I go and I get a really long branch, like a tree limb. And I fling it into the water. It sort of like has prongs on it, and I was able to drag the bag over to the shore and carry it out. Everything is still in there. Yeah.
And you taught your kids that it's okay to play around in flood-prone areas and in dangerous areas like that are probably have signs warning you that you're not supposed to go in there. You know, it's about teaching those lessons at a young age.
Exactly.
Because you got to get your stuff.
Important. These are things they would never get from their mother.
That those water bottles aren't free.
Yeah.
You know, you're in here making the content so that those kids can eat.
That's right. Yeah. So thank you for filling in for me last week. So I could.
I enjoyed it, but I enjoy it more now. That's awesome. I mean, that's glad everything worked out.
It was pretty great.
Glad everyone's safe.
Yeah.
Did you tell their mom the whole story?
Oh, they were like, "We're telling Mom. We can't wait till Mom gets home. We're gonna tell her." I mean, there's not enough.
You have to brief them about what the official record is.
There's not enough candy in the world that I could bribe them with not to
you had
spill
to
this around.
just lawyer up and.
Yeah, I mean, but in a small way. Yeah, I mean, in a not small way. I mean, I'm actually sort of proud of this, goof up and adventure and everything, because I was actually I was telling them we're gonna go on this crazy adventure.
They just didn't know how crazy it was going to be.
I thought it was just going to be just hanging out at the beach.
Well, certainly the next time you tell them you're going on a crazy adventure, they're like, well, buckle up. What's Dad got in for us today?